work has begun. We're digging some holes in the ground. Bo just said, oops. I don't know if he made a mistake or not. What we're trying to accomplish here is we are basically going to start creating some swales in the ground and manipulate the earth so that basically water flow goes where we want it. We have some low points, some high points. We've talked about it in previous videos. So right now, the goal is to start manipulating the land and the space that we're working with so we can start planting things, building paths, and actually turning it into something really cool.
So we're starting in the back end of the garden, which is the wild zone of the design, with the idea of this being wildish area, fruit trees, other shrubs, just letting them kind of be natural and do their own thing. Fruit trees are going to be our biggest investment in the design and the whole garden process. They're going to take the longest to establish, so they need to be in the ground as soon as they can if we want to enjoy the fruit. So we've planted, first up, our avocado. Planted that one 3 weeks ago. The idea is you want to get that in the ground as soon as possible because they're really susceptible to the heat in summer. So we're getting that in springtime. It's got some time to establish some new roots. We mentioned previously in another video about the state of the soil here. We're in a sandy red clay soil with a little bit of rock through it. Got pretty good drainage and it holds moisture really well. But even though the surface looks quite dry and dusty, underneath about 100, 200 mil, it's actually really quite nice and moist still, which you'll see in the piles of soil we've dug around. It's really dark brown color.
Now, in a previous video, you will have seen that this pile of crap right here was buried in the ground right there. It's a toxic plant, not native, and something that can be actually really bad for other plant life and potentially animals as well if they are to chew on it, eat it, whatever. It's basically stunk like oil and was doing us no good being in the garden. So with the handy digger that's just off screen over here, Bo was able to get it out pretty easily, which is a bit of a win. We weren't sure how complicated its root system was going to be, and it actually came out in one piece pretty easily.
So this is our first big job of the backyard. We're doing some site works, so leveling off the undulations to create a path. We're trying to get the water that falls on the path to flow towards the future garden beds. Again, we're really capturing that free water, and then it's also not directing too much water towards the shed and making the shed rust. Reese, what are you doing? So moving down, we've got a future path running along some dwarf apples. So we've placed apples along this south-facing side of the shed because apples really like a cool root system. They don't like the heat. They like a lot of moisture as well. So the runoff from that shed's going to naturally pull along there and keep their roots nice and cool. Benefits of these trees is they're actually dwarf as well, so they're not going to overtake the path and be a nuisance. They can be kept quite small and manageable, and we've planted 2 together because apples need cross-pollination. We're digging a series of retention basins. Some people call them swales. Basically just ditches in the ground that help us to store water runoff, so the water is going to naturally pool in the lowest point of the garden. So the idea is these series of ponds start at the high point, the water will overflow from the high one, overflow into the next one, so forth, till this end pond fills up with water. The idea is you plant trees either on the bank of the pond or inside the pond, depending on the species and their water requirements, with the idea that they drink naturally from the basin rather than the tap water. So I've got 2 English black mulberries. These were propagated from a 100-year-old tree. I planted just 2. They had 2 just to see which one grows the fastest, and I'll pull out the weaker one and give it away or put it up somewhere else.
But we really don't know what we're doing with this one right here. Bo seems to think that if we leave it, by the time we've finished the job, the whole end process, this will be the last remaining thing of the back garden. And so he's thinking maybe we'll keep it as a cool piece, but I think we should try and dig it out by hand and live stream it, because I think it would be pretty funny watching us suffer pulling it out of the ground. You might have to, hit that like and subscribe button to make sure you stick around to see what comes of it. Lowest prizes, just the beginning.